They will try to restrain you, break you, or chain you to their fears. But the truth is simple. No one has the power to stop you, unless you hand them the weapon yourself. Throughout history, the strongest were not those shielded by comfort, but those tempered in resistance. Every attempt to hold you back is, in reality, an unspoken admission of your threat. The world operates on chains of fear, doubt, guilt, and manipulation. But these chains are illusions sustained only by your compliance. In this discourse, we strip away the lies of weakness and confront the darker reality. Power lies not in breaking free from others, but in denying them the right to bind you in the first place. They tell you that chains hold you, that rules bind you, that others, stronger, richer, louder, possess the power to stop your ascent. But have you ever grasped those chains with your own hands? Have you tested their weight? More often than not, they are illusions. Phantoms built from fear, shame, and the silent permission you give. Consider the prisoner who has been confined so long that the idea of escape terrifies him more than captivity. The walls around him no longer need guards. His mind itself polices the limits of his freedom. He could walk out the gate, but he never tries. Why? Because the most unbreakable prison is belief. So it is with you. The world whispers you cannot. You must not. It is too dangerous. And you, like so many before you, nod and obey. Ask yourself who benefits when you believe in your own weakness. It is never you. Look back at history. Whole empires rose and fell not because of superior armies, but because the masses believed themselves powerless. Rome did not collapse the moment barbarians crossed its borders. It collapsed long before, when Romans surrendered discipline, when fear outweighed courage, when the illusion of decline became accepted as fate. Do you see the trick? Chains do not hold you. Acceptance of chains does. Let us strip this down to psychology. Imagine someone insults you in public. If you internalize their words, you give them mastery over your state. Their voice becomes the chain, and your self-image the prison. But if you treat their insult as wind passing through an empty street, they lose all power. The insult vanishes into air, and the chain never even forms. This is the secret manipulators understand. They do not need to actually bind you. They merely suggest that you are bound. They impose rules that exist only if you consent to them. Consider the corporate worker who never questions authority. He is told, be grateful, keep quiet, accept your role. He complies, believing the chain real. Yet another worker, just as skilled, refuses to accept the illusion. He negotiates. He defies. He is promoted or feared. The difference? Not talent, but the refusal to worship chains that are imaginary. Ask yourself, then, who in your life profits from your belief in limits? Perhaps your family, who chains you with guilt. Perhaps your society, which chains you with norms. Perhaps your so-called friends, who chain you with expectations. Do you see the pattern? Every chain begins with your silent agreement. Now reflect on power. Those who rise are rarely the strongest. They are the ones who soar through the illusions first. Think of the prince who inherits a throne surrounded by scheming nobles. Each noble tells him what cannot be done, what is forbidden by tradition, what would offend too many. A weak ruler obeys. A strong ruler breaks the illusion, rewrites the tradition, and the nobles, who seemed so powerful, suddenly appear fragile, exposed. Why? Because their strength existed only in his belief. Even in personal life, this applies. Perhaps you hesitate to speak your mind because you fear rejection. But is rejection a chain? Does it stop your tongue, or is it merely the shadow of discomfort? Fear is not iron. It is smoke, and smoke only blinds the eyes of those who refuse to blow it away. You must ask yourself the hardest question: how many of your chains are real, and how many are ghosts? Most will discover the answer is brutal. 90% of what binds them never existed outside their imagination. And here lies the cruel truth. The illusion of chains is not only more efficient than real chains, it is far more lasting. A tyrant who shackles a people must expend resources to keep them shackled, but a tyrant who convinces them that shackles are inevitable expends nothing. The people themselves defend the chains. This is why the greatest manipulation is always invisible. You are not told outright that you cannot rise. You are given stories, rules, and warnings. You are fed tales of others who tried and failed. You are lulled into thinking submission is safety, and you accept it. But here is the turning point. Once you see through the illusion, the spell breaks. The chain vanishes, and those who once loomed over you shrink into ordinary figures, exposed and trembling. So I ask you, will you continue to polish the shackles others hand you? Or will you test them, pull against them, and watch them dissolve into nothing? Because the moment you understand that most chains were never real, a dangerous power awakens in you, and that power terrifies those who thrive on your compliance. The question now becomes, what will you do with this power? Once you see the chains for what they are, obedience is the default of the weak. Compliance is the fuel of those who control you. But the moment you refuse to comply, the balance of power shifts. Think carefully. Every order, every demand, every unspoken expectation, they survive only because you agree to follow them. The instant you resist, their illusion of authority cracks. Ask yourself, what does it mean to disobey? It is not chaos. It is not rebellion for its own sake. It is the strategic refusal to play by rules that were never written for your benefit. History proves this again and again. Consider Spartacus, a slave who decided not to comply with the destiny written for him. He did not accept chains. He did not accept humiliation. His refusal ignited fear in Rome itself, not because he commanded legions at first, but because he shattered the illusion that slaves had no choice but to submit. Or take Martin Luther. The church demanded obedience to rituals, indulgences, unquestioned authority. One man refused. With a single act of non-compliance, nailing words to a door, he destabilized an empire of faith that ruled minds for centuries. Do you see the pattern? One refusal can ripple through the world like a storm. But you hesitate, don't you? You fear punishment. You fear being cast out. You fear the consequences of saying, no. Let me reveal a darker truth. Punishment is often far weaker than obedience itself. Those who threaten consequences rely on your imagination to do most of the work. You picture exile, loss, humiliation, and so you can play before the punishment even arrives. Most rulers, bosses, and manipulators never need to act. They need only dangle the possibility. But what happens when someone refuses anyway? Suddenly, the enforcer must decide. Do they escalate, or do they reveal their weakness? Many cannot afford escalation. Their power depends on voluntary compliance, not actual enforcement. Think of the workplace. A manager demands overtime without pay. Most employees comply, fearing unemployment. But the one who refuses exposes the lie. More often than not, the manager backs down, because replacing and training a worker costs more than tolerating defiance. The refusal itself becomes leverage. The same applies in relationships. Someone manipulates you with guilt. If you loved me, you would. Most bend, giving in to preserve peace. But when you refuse, when you accept the cost of being disliked, you reveal their tactic as hollow. Their weapon turns blunt. This is why non-compliance terrifies those who thrive on control. It does not merely disrupt their demands. It forces them to show their hand. And here is the psychological core. People are conditioned from birth to obey. Schools teach you to sit quietly, to raise your hand, to follow instructions. Societies reward compliance with the illusion of safety. Families praise the obedient child while shaming the defiant one. By the time you reach adulthood, saying no feels unnatural, almost sinful. But therein lies the power. Every habit of obedience makes non-compliance rarer, and thus more valuable. The individual who dares to disobey becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is power, because it cannot be easily controlled. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you said, no, not out of convenience, but out of strategy? When was the last time you refused? Not because it was easy, but because it exposed the illusion of authority. Most people never do. And that is why they remain trapped. Non-compliance does not mean reckless defiance. A reckless rebel burns out quickly, destroyed by his own impulsiveness. True non-compliance is calculated. It is choosing when to resist, where to resist, and in what manner resistance delivers maximum advantage. Sometimes, a quiet refusal speaks louder than an open rebellion. A silent shake of the head. A deliberate inaction. A polite but firm no. These acts destabilize tyrants more than shouting ever could, because they deny the fuel of control without providing an easy enemy to crush. Think of Gandhi's Salt March. It was not violence that weakened the British Empire. It was the deliberate refusal to comply with unjust laws. A quiet, stubborn act of defiance that forced an empire to reveal its fragility. The same principle applies to you. Every time you obey out of fear, you strengthen the chains. Every time you refuse, you weaken them. So the question is simple: who truly controls you? The one who gives the order? Or you, the one who chooses whether to obey? The world belongs to those who dare to withhold compliance, because refusal, when executed with precision, does not just free you, it enslaves those who depended on your obedience. But beware, once you master non-compliance, another question arises. If you can deny others control over you, can you also learn to turn their resistance into your weapon? Resistance. Most people fear it. They see opposition as a wall, a threat, a punishment for daring to step forward. But you, if you are wise, you will see resistance for what it truly is: confirmation. Think. Why would anyone resist you if you were insignificant? Why would anyone waste effort to oppose you if your movement, your words, your presence carried no danger? Resistance is proof of impact. History shows us that the most powerful figures always faced the strongest resistance. Julius Caesar was resisted not because he was weak, but because he threatened the entire order of the Roman Republic. His assassination was the ultimate admission of his strength. The senators killed him only because they feared he was unstoppable. Even in death, he shaped Rome. His resistance gave him immortality. Do you see the paradox? The greater the resistance, the greater the signal of your importance. Now consider psychology. People resist change not out of logic, but out of fear. They resist you because your presence threatens the order they cling to. When someone pushes against you, it means you have already unsettled their balance. You have already stepped into their mind as a disruptor. Ask yourself, what is more valuable? To be ignored or to be resisted? The answer is clear. Indifference kills. Resistance validates. But here is the critical mistake most make. They crumble at the first pushback. They interpret resistance as failure, when in reality, it is the first mark of progress. The wise do not fight resistance directly. They exploit it. Look at the art of war. A skilled general does not always smash into the enemy's defense. He provokes resistance, watches how the enemy reacts, and then uses that reaction to expose their weakness. Resistance reveals patterns. Resistance reveals fear. Resistance gives you the very information you need to dominate. The same is true in everyday life. Imagine you suggest an idea at work. Some colleagues dismiss it harshly, even mock it. That is your cue. They are revealing where they feel threatened. Their mockery is not proof of your failure, but a signal that your idea touches a nerve. Instead of retreating, you can refine your argument, build alliances, and push harder precisely where they feel most uncomfortable. Their resistance shows you the path of attack. Or consider relationships. Someone resists your independence, criticizes your choices, or tries to sabotage your growth. Why? Because your movement upward exposes their stagnation. Their resistance is a confession. You are climbing higher than they wish you to climb. Instead of breaking you, their opposition confirms your direction. But here is the cold truth. You must learn to turn resistance into fuel. When others oppose you, they are investing energy in your existence. Every word against you spreads your name. Every obstacle they build gives you an arena to demonstrate strength. Think of Galileo, condemned by the church for daring to claim the earth moved around the sun. Their resistance was fierce, merciless. Yet it ensured his ideas could not be forgotten. They tried to bury him in silence, but their very opposition carved his name into history. And what of you? How many times have you misread resistance as rejection, when it was really an unspoken acknowledgement of your power? How many times have you mistaken hostility for defeat, when in fact it was the applause of fear in disguise? You must train your mind to see differently. Every insult, every challenge, every attempt to block your path must be treated as proof that you are on the right road. If they resist, it means you have struck the nerve they most wanted you to avoid. This is not to say resistance is always comfortable. It will sting. It will bruise. But remember, the lion does not curse the spear that strikes him. He uses it to measure the courage of his hunters. The fact that he is hunted proves he is feared. So ask yourself, what will you do with your resistance? Will you allow it to wear you down, to silence you, to confirm the false belief that you are powerless? Or will you wield it, twisting it into leverage, using it to rise higher than you ever could without it? Because the moment you stop fearing resistance, you begin to control it. And the moment you control it, you can make it your servant. But there is a darker mastery still. If you can learn to exploit resistance, what happens when you no longer merely endure it, but deliberately provoke it? Attachment is the leash that makes men obedient. It binds the strongest minds and makes them pliable. Those who crave approval, who fear rejection, who depend on praise, these are the easiest to control. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine the man who is unmoved by flattery, untouched by insults, indifferent to applause. He becomes untouchable. Ask yourself, how can anyone chain you if you have already severed your need for their validation? They may shout. They may threaten, may withdraw their affection or their support. But if you are detached, what do they hold over you? Nothing. History is merciless in proving this truth. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, philosopher. Surrounded by power, wealth, and danger, he cultivated detachment through stoic discipline. He reminded himself that praise was wind, that insults were echoes, and that death itself was no tragedy. Because of this, he could rule without being ruled by fear of opinion. His detachment was not weakness. It was armor. Or consider the Medici bankers of Florence. Their true strength did not come from gold alone, but from their ability to appear calm, indifferent, unshaken when fortunes shifted. Rivals panicked during crises. The Medici did not. Their detachment from immediate fear allowed them to maneuver while others collapsed. And so, they endured. Psychology teaches us that attachment is the root of manipulation. Think of the parent who says to the child, "If you don't obey, you will disappoint me." The child complies, not because the demand is just, but because the fear of losing approval burns too deeply. Think of the lover who whispers, "Without me, you are nothing." The partner bends, sacrifices, submits, all because attachment has blinded them. Now ask yourself, where in your own life are you most easily manipulated? It is always where you are most attached. To reputation, to comfort, to the gaze of others, to belonging. But detachment severs these strings. And when the strings are cut, the puppeteer's hands tremble. This is why leaders cultivate an aura of indifference. The king who does not beg for love, but commands respect, is far stronger than the one desperate for approval. Look at history's tyrants. Those who were feared lasted longer than those who begged to be adored. Love can be withdrawn. Respect can be betrayed. But fear, combined with cold detachment, leaves fewer openings for attack. Even in ordinary life, this weapon works. Picture someone insulting you in public. If you react, you reveal weakness. You prove that their words have power. But if you remain detached, calm, even amused, you expose the insult as hollow. Their weapon falls to the ground unused. In that moment, your silence cuts deeper than any reply. Detachment also gives you time. Most people rush, driven by fear of missing out, fear of being left behind, fear of what others think. But when you detach, you can wait. You can watch. You can let others reveal themselves while you preserve your strength. And when you finally act, it is decisive. Ask yourself, what is more dangerous? The man who reacts instantly, or the man who waits silently, unmoved, until the perfect strike? But let us be clear, detachment is not apathy. It is not laziness, nor lack of desire. It is desire without desperation, control without dependence. The detached man still pursues power, but he does not beg for it. He still loves, but he does not collapse without love. He still speaks, but he does not need applause to continue. This is why detachment is terrifying to manipulators. They cannot bribe you with praise. They cannot enslave you with threats. They cannot lure you with comfort. You are beyond their reach. And here lies the paradox. Once you master detachment, you gain the ability to manipulate others more effectively. Because while you remain steady, others swing wildly between craving approval and fearing rejection. You can play upon their attachments while keeping your own hidden. So ask yourself honestly, whose approval still controls you? What rejection still frightens you? What loss still makes you hesitate? Until you sever these chains, you are vulnerable. But the moment you detach, you rise above. You stop playing their game and force them to play yours. And yet, there is a further mastery. If detachment frees you from being controlled, what happens when you combine it with relentless action, unburdened by fear of rejection or loss? The world does not reward the hesitant, it rewards the predator. The one who moves swiftly, decisively, without waiting for permission. Look around you. Most people hesitate. They calculate endlessly, seeking approval, waiting for the right moment. And in that waiting, their opportunities are devoured by the one who strikes first. Ask yourself, when have you lost not because you were weak, but because you were slow? History is carved by predators, not dreamers. Consider Alexander the Great. He did not wait for consensus among his generals. He did not ask permission from tradition. He moved with ferocity, seizing territory before rivals could prepare. His advantage was not merely his army, it was his speed. The predator strikes before the prey knows it is hunted. Or think of Genghis Khan. Ruthless, unstoppable. He did not linger in debate. He chose, he struck, and entire kingdoms collapsed before they could even organize a defense. His speed created terror greater than his arrows. The lesson is brutal, but clear hesitation kills. Action conquers. Psychology confirms this. When you hesitate, you flood your mind with doubt. Doubt breeds fear. Fear freezes movement. But decisive action reverses the cycle. Action creates momentum. Momentum breeds confidence. Confidence generates power. Do you see why predators hold the advantage? Because they understand that control is not taken by those who wait, but by those who seize. Look even at politics. A candidate who hesitates to speak boldly is forgotten. The one who dominates the conversation, even if ruthless, shapes the narrative. People follow certainty, not indecision. They are drawn to the predator because the predator appears inevitable. Now, examine your own life. Perhaps you had an idea, a vision, an opportunity, but you waited. You overanalyzed. You told yourself the timing was not right. Then someone else, less talented, less intelligent, acted, and the world rewarded them, not you. Do you realize what happened? You handed them your victory. You surrendered the prize, not because you lacked strength, but because you lacked speed. This is why the predator always has the advantage. He does not need to be the strongest, only the fastest to act. But speed alone is not enough. The predator does not rush blindly. He watches, he stalks, and when the time is ripe, he lunges without hesitation. This balance is what most fail to achieve. They either freeze entirely, or they act recklessly without strategy. But the predator is both patient and decisive, waiting when it costs him nothing, striking when hesitation would cost him everything. Think of business. When new markets open, those who move first dominate. Amazon did not become an empire because it was the only company with books. It became an empire because it acted faster than competitors who doubted. The predator's advantage turned a simple bookstore into global dominance. Or think of relationships. The one who hesitates to express interest, to lead, to act, is quickly forgotten. But the one who moves forward decisively, without begging, without hesitation, seizes attention and respect. Do you see the pattern? Everywhere in life, the predator consumes the hesitant. Now, ask yourself, how many times have you starved at the table of life? Because you waited while another fed. How many opportunities have slipped away, not because they were stolen, but because you refused to bite? You must decide, will you remain prey, waiting for safety that never arrives? Or will you sharpen your instincts, ready to strike when others are still wondering what to do? And understand this. Being a predator is not about cruelty. It is about clarity. It is about knowing that hesitation is death. That waiting for permission is submission. That the world belongs not to those who deserve it, but to those who seize it before others awaken. This is why predators dominate. They move while others think. They claim while others doubt. They devour while others dream. So I ask you, are you ready to act without waiting for approval? Are you willing to strike before the world blesses your move? Because the predator's advantage is not merely speed. It is the courage to decide when others cannot. And yet, there is a further truth. It is one thing to strike quickly, another to become the obstacle itself. Which leads us to the final mastery. Not just breaking through barriers, but becoming the barrier others cannot move. All your life, you have been told to break through obstacles, to fight barriers, to overcome walls placed before you. But what if you reversed the game? What if, instead of endlessly crashing against walls, you became the wall? Consider this shift carefully. The struggler fights to move forward. The ruler forces others to struggle against him. Ask yourself, which position holds greater power? History shows us that true dominance comes not from chasing endlessly, but from standing immovable. Think of Constantinople. For centuries, it was the barrier between East and West. Armies hurled themselves against its walls. Some conquered, most failed. But for generations, its power lay not in expansion, but in being the obstacle every empire had to reckon with. Or think of the Catholic Church in medieval Europe. Whether kings loved it or despised it, they could not bypass it. Every throne was legitimized by its blessing. The Church was not chasing influence. It was the immovable barrier through which all power had to pass. This is the essence of becoming the barrier. You stop being one of many striving for approval, and you transform into the gatekeeper others must contend with. Psychology makes this principle sharper. People exhaust themselves fighting for scraps because they see themselves as hunters, chasing prey. But the true master positions himself as the terrain itself. The terrain does not chase. It dictates the struggle. It shapes the path. Have you noticed how some people in your life drain energy simply by being unmovable? Perhaps a boss who never compromises. Perhaps a partner who never bends first in conflict. They do not need to chase. Their stubbornness becomes the standard everyone else adjusts to. They are the barrier. So, how do you become this in your own life? First, by refusing to be desperate. Desperation is the mark of prey. The one who begs for opportunity is ignored. The one who makes others beg for his approval becomes indispensable. Second, by mastering patience. The wall does not rush. The barrier waits. Others waste energy while you remain calm, calculating, forcing them to reveal their limits. Third, by creating rules that others must follow. Nations do this with borders. Businesses do this with contracts. Even individuals can do it with standards, what they tolerate, what they reject, what they demand. Do you see the pattern? The power does not lie in movement. It lies in positioning. Think of chess. The king moves slowly, almost helplessly, but the entire game revolves around him. Every piece moves with the king as the center of gravity. He is not the hunter. He is the barrier that determines victory or defeat. Now apply this to your own struggles. Instead of running after recognition, create such standards that others must win your recognition. Instead of begging for inclusion, position yourself so that your absence creates loss. Instead of pleading for opportunity, make yourself the door that opportunity must pass through. It requires coldness, yes. It requires the ability to endure isolation. For to become the barrier, you must stop chasing approval. You must stop seeking acceptance. You must become the one who defines the terms. But think of the advantage. When you are the barrier, others reveal themselves in their attempts to move you. You see their desperation. You measure their strength. You control the pace of the game. Ask yourself who holds more power. The suitor begging for affection, or the one whose silence forces others to wonder, will they choose me or not? Who dominates? The worker who fights endlessly for a raise, or the one whose very presence makes the company fear losing him? The predator may strike fast, but the barrier controls the hunt itself. The lion terrifies its prey, but the mountain dictates where the hunt can happen at all. Now imagine yourself as that mountain. Others waste effort climbing, begging, demanding. You stand unmoved, and their very attempts to overcome you only confirm your strength. So I ask you, will you keep exhausting yourself fighting against walls? Or will you become the wall others must fight against? Because the ultimate form of power is not to break barriers. It is to be the barrier. And yet, there is a final question. Once you become immovable, what happens when you decide, at last, to move? Power is never seized by force alone. It is taken in silence, by shaping minds that do not realize they are being shaped. The strongest control is invisible. When people believe they are free, yet follow the path you designed. When they resist, yet walk exactly where you want them to go. This is the essence of true strategy. Not loud commands, not open threats, but the quiet architecture of influence, where others guard the chains you placed on them, believing they are their own. Ask yourself, would you rather rule through fear they can see, or through illusions they cannot escape? Reflect. Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe if you wish to master more of these Machiavellian truths. And share this video so others too may learn how power truly works. Remember, those who understand control are never controlled.